What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go back and look at Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1. This is hopefully going to be the start of a very long series because there is so many Dragon Ball games, and I wanted to do this. We have Sparking Zero, hopefully coming out this year. I think it is going to come out this year, and it gets me very excited, and it gets me thinking back to the glory days of this franchise when we had Budokai, then we had, of course, Budokai Tenkaichi, which these were the games I wouldn't say I grew up necessarily only on them, but when I think of Dragon Ball games, these are the ones I think of, and I just remember having an absolute blast with them, specifically like tournament mode, legendary. And I don't even know why. I don't know if it's like a thing where everybody loves it, but just kind of seeing the randomized, like, hey, this character versus that character, and because it is so random, my brain is so weird. It's like, oh, who's going to win? So you would do your fight, figure it out. And then, of course, you'd get to see kind of the results after of who beat who. I don't know why, but that always stuck out. Still to this day, I remember myself thinking that. I really love this franchise. I don't know if I love this specific game or loved, in the past tense, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to get it physically. And I'm trying to do this, for all of them. So far, I have Budokai 1 and I have Budokai 2. So I just wanted to kind of show it to you. Legendary. You see it kind of behind me as well. Legendary, cover. Back to it. Keeping a character, I think, right over here. Keeping a character. This is cool. You put a character on the back of the box that is not even like you. This is the hardest character to get in the game in terms of unlockable. So, just an absolute blast to go back to play. So let's talk a little bit about it. I was actually shocked to see, and I kind of want to start here. I was shocked to see the reception of this game. So, look, critic scores are not everything. I talk about that all the time on really all of my channels, right? But when you go back to these games, specifically this one, this was not all that loved, from critics. These games got, or at least this game specifically, got like low 7s. It was kind of considered a lackluster-ish thing. It was praised for the visuals. It was praised for kind of the big moments in terms of like telling the story, over again. It was praised for that, but it wasn't exactly praised for kind of the lackluster, as they would say, gameplay. And I was like seeing the scores, I was like, wow. I thought it was looked at more, better, especially this one. Now, this one kicked it off, right? There was probably like 12 plus Dragon Ball games that existed before this one, but this was the first of that generation. So this game comes out 2002. I think November in Europe and then December in the US. Actually came to Japan later. So 2002, we're approaching 22 years there. And this kicked off, again, in my opinion, like a legendary string of releases. You had all these, the Tenkaichi games, so on, going through all these generations. But I want to say it all started here. I guess what I mean is like when you think of the fighting style and you think of where we're at now, you think about where Sparking Zero is going to be, and then where you can trace it back. Could you maybe trace it before this one? Yeah, but I would say this one in terms of putting it all together, the first one that really, really made an impact. Again, the first one that released on PS2, and I personally really like it. I'm going to go through some of the reasons why. Let's start with the gameplay, and then we'll kind of move to more of like the story and the different modes in this game. So the gameplay, I got to be real, I like that it's simple. Now, I noticed in the moment, and I'm not a fighting guy. I've talked about that before however, on this channel, weirdly enough, like fighting is probably, besides like car, racing, fighting is probably the second lowest in terms of how much I play, and not how much like I respect. I respect a lot of games, but how good I am and just like what's on the, my meter of like, will I play a game or not? Fighting games are extremely low, but I've always liked the Dragon Ball games. I've always liked the Naruto games, even though I'm not really a big fan of Naruto, the series. I think the Naruto games are phenomenal, and I want to cover them on the channel. I think to Mortal Kombat, I played like 6 Mortal Kombat games to get ready for Mortal Kombat 1, reviewed them all here. Street Fighter, I played the last 2, I think both kind of for this channel. Tekken, I wanted to, I never ended up doing it, but, these games, weirdly enough, have become a thing on this channel. But I guess my point, okay? Why do I like it? I like the simplicity. Now, I don't necessarily love that a lot of the moves, like, is there that much uniqueness between one character and the next? No. Really, you think about the modern game, the modern fighter, and I will give respect to the the modern stuff. There's a lot of stuff in modern gaming and even modern fighters that I would say take many steps back. It isn't all better than it was back in, say, 2002. But one thing I do think has really been, hyper focused on, both by kind of your expectations of what you want or we want as fans, and then they do as creators, is every character very unique. Not just in their looks, not just in like their suits or their skins, right? In fact, in this game, there's very limited of those, right? But in how they act and how they, are. Does this character, their moveset, right? They're going to have a very different kind of moveset versus somebody else. And when I think to the modern day Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, it's not only actually about learning your moves, but it's also learning about, okay, what can the other character do to kind of mess me up? Like, what are their moves that I have to think about so I know how to counter? And I can say that just as a very basic, kind of getting into the fandom of fighting games, right? This game doesn't have that. I mean, I gotta be real. This game does not have any of that. In fact, it's not entirely like button mashing or, spamming, but it kind of is. And you can get away, I could get away with being god-awful. Now, I mean, look, I've played a lot of these games just in the last, 10 or so months. I do think I'm getting better. I don't think I'm nearly as bad as I was. So I do think I have a little skill to me. Not much, but a little. And that helped. But I do think you could have almost no skill whatsoever and make it pretty easily through. There are a couple, not really boss fights, but just, let's say, scenario fights in the stories. There were some that, crushed me. And if I didn't have, I only have one PS2 controller. If I didn't have that controller, I might have done some pretty nasty stuff to that controller because I was getting pretty mad. But beyond maybe 3 different fights in the entire game, and sometimes it was because of the starting of your character. Sometimes it wouldn't start you with full health, or sometimes you'd have to take on 7 waves of enemies. When it did that, I would sometimes get a little annoyed, but beyond that, I handle myself quite well, and I like that because I don't know, it's simple. It's something that, when you look at it and it's punch, 4 punches, and then the energy, but or circle in this case. When it did that, I was like, okay, you can apply that to everybody. Now, not everybody starts out, at least in story mode, not everybody starts out with that move, but they're going to get there. Everybody in the game has punch energy, right? Everybody's got that. And most people have over with the first punch and then 3 more punches and then energy. A lot, and what I'm getting at, a lot of the moves repeat. A lot of even the beams, if it's Kamehameha or just something else, a lot of those beam-like moves, they repeat, right? There's nothing besides their name, because everybody's kind of got the unique thing, but how they look, how they function, how you get them, literally what you do to get them, all generally the same. Again, I'm actually not complaining. Now, I will say, thinking about that and seeing the moves I recorded the entire time I was playing this game on PS2. I set up, maybe I'll show a picture. It was a disaster setting up that PS2 and getting it to record and getting it so I could actually see it. I know people told me I should have went different methods with it, but I wanted to be a purist. I wanted to do it the old way. But when I was doing it, I was thinking, okay, I will say, I could see how you would deduct points back in 2002. I could see how you could, maybe not low 70s, but I could see how you wouldn't give the game obviously a perfect score or anything, because the gameplay is a little one-dimensional. Okay, but honestly, I liked it. I liked the more spammy kind of tone or vibe to it versus, the other fighters that I've played recently. But I will say this, there is strategy. There's movement with the attacks. So, you could just press square, right, and just do, a couple, and you can make that a combo. But, if you move left or right with square, there'll be different things. There's kind of counter blocks. There's, there's things with throwing. Honestly, overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it was different. And in terms of the repetitiveness, I kind of liked it because once you learn one, yeah, it's the same generally. There's a little differences, but generally it's the same kind of for everybody. That's okay. That's okay by me. Now, in terms of how the game is structured, it definitely is structured more for you to do the story. Look, most of this game is the story. You can absolutely do dueling. You can do the customization of the character, which I didn't do, next to any of that when I played it, but there's a little footage of me, going through it. That's actually a real, it's cool. Whether I didn't know or I just forgot, I never paid much attention to that, I think, growing up playing these games and even, to this day, but kind of crafting almost, not really the perfect character, but your kind of character, right? So, if you want a character that has a specific move set, well, you can kind of layer them on there, but there's only so much space, and some of them, I think, can take up, more than one skill, so you got to be careful how you do it. But again, how you get those things, how you get those skills and capsules, you play the story. So a lot of this game is connected to the main story, which is fine because guess what? That's the best. Well, the tournament mode will always stand out, but the story probably is the best part of the entire game. So it goes through kind of 3 different arcs, to Dragon Ball, and I enjoyed it. I saw, again, I was looking at the reviews, just, what are people saying back in 2002? And things that people were saying is like, the highlights of Dragon Ball and those arcs and implanting them, into this game, they did a really good job. And I would agree. I will say it is. And I laugh. Like, I don't really look at it as a negative. Maybe if you're playing it for the first time, like in 2002, or I don't know, just maybe the seriousness level that I was putting it on, I could see how you would be, like, offended or mad. The jumping, like what they skip, is hilarious. It's actually so funny when you'll do a fight, they'll have a beginning, kind of cutscene to it, an end cutscene, and then where it goes after that, or kind of when it starts the next chapter, and the narration-wise, it's hilarious, the jumps, because it jumps over massive things, and you could have a character being totally fine, and then like a character could just be dead, the next second, because they skip. I mean, you have to, right? There's actually a lot of story. I know people were mad that they skipped the Majin Buu, kind of arc to it, and I understand that. That's totally cool, but I think what they had in it for how much content, and what I found interesting, I didn't remember this at all, so you play it through. Now, you could actually back out, and they give you kind of moments to back out to the main menu. So what I did, I went through all of them, right? Went through, one arc, and then they say next time on Dragon Ball Z, whatever they do. Then the next one and the next one, okay? So I do all 3. And then you realize when you go back to the main menu and you go back to the story, there's missing chapters. And it's like, oh, okay, so you take the role of a different character, and it kind of fills in, like the first one, let's say, is Vegeta, right? So you go through with Goku, and there's definitely some holes, and you're like, are they ever going to fill this in? Or maybe, again, it's just funny that they don't. But then you handle, maybe you play as Piccolo. I think that was the case in that one, and that really starts to fill it out a little bit more, where it's like, oh, okay, here's those 3 missing chapters. So I will say, actually playing through them all, it tells a very succinct, beginning, middle, end. Like, it's got it all. And then, something I did not know, I probably didn't even do this when I was, growing up. There's the what if kind of episodes. So you could play the finale, and you would play as the villains. So you play as Vegeta, you play as Frieza, and you play as Cell. And it's a what if kind of situation, and very cool. In terms of ranking, they're all very unique. Cell's is kind of weird in terms, like, it was a dream, basically. Frieza's is just, complete, not even world domination, but like universe domination, getting his wish of, everlasting life. Love it. And there's no way I did that, growing up. I didn't even know about it. When I was getting into the game, getting ready to play it, I looked it up a little bit and saw, once you beat it, you have the what if episodes where you play as the villain. You basically beat everybody and you win. Really cool. And just seeing these characters, like, I know, like, maybe I even glossed over that. Like, now, I'm not I'm not like, you can't quiz me and I would know everything, but I really do like Dragon Ball. Piccolo, like, will always stand out in my youth, just like seeing kind of his character model. But Goku and Vegeta and Raditz and all these, and I'm looking up. Now, up there, I have a Frieza Funko Pop that I actually just got a few months ago. I mean, Frieza is just so freaking epic. Cell is, in really all the different forms, really epic. It's just cool to see these characters. So, I kind of gloss by the epicness of it. Like, these cutscenes, they do a really good job. Like, I think it's the same acting, same people from the show, so it doesn't sound phoned in. It doesn't sound, like, there is some of the characters are a little, like, off, but generally it's what you think of when you think of Dragon Ball, or when you think of a lot of those, where it's over the top and a lot of screaming and a lot of, like, directness, right? Like, you have it. It's in this game, and it's, again, like, it's not phoned in, and you can absolutely get that in some of them. You think to even, like, Jump Force with, like, the lack of voice work, and then you think to this one, you're like, holy God, it runs circles, around it. It really does. So, seeing them all, and again, like, yeah, some of the moves and some of the ways you get to the moves are repeated, but being able to play as Frieza is just really cool. And then hearing Frieza and, seeing, it's really awesome. And it's a pretty meaty roster. Like, you have androids, you have Cell, you have, some villains, some heroes. Like, there's a pretty good roster. And like I said, now everything is really tied to the story. By doing the story and doing those missing episodes and doing the what if episodes, you'll unlock the villains, you'll unlock all of the characters. And I think the roster is 22 or 23, characters deep, which I think is actually quite a good list. Again, in terms of how different they are from each other, maybe not necessarily there, but I mean, you put 23 characters up against like some modern day rosters, you're probably at least even, maybe you're even beating some of them. Again, originality, maybe some of them now are very, very different from another one versus this game, but I'd say a pretty good, sizable roster amount. And like I said, even the character skill thing, you unlock pretty much everything, through this. So, I mean, I did that. I went through every single chapter, beat it, and really, really enjoyed it. Dueling, I mean, I tried it here and there just to see a couple characters that you don't play as in it. And then I did a little bit of tournament mode. And again, tournament mode just will always stand out with the brackets. For some reason, brackets really intrigue me, especially randomized computer brackets. So, I don't know. Let me say this. I want to say this because maybe some people can relate. Maybe it's just me. So, in the tournament, okay, what I really, and I remember this, and I was victim, of this multiple times just now playing it, getting ring out, okay, like it is the worst because, I don't know, maybe it's again my skill, but I don't know always how to sidestep. I feel like my character sometimes automatically, I'm sure I'm pressing something. I thought at one point it was like pulling back or like down on the D-pad and then X. It definitely has to do, I think, with X for sure, but there's ways, to sidestep and to kind of move. In the tournament, when you're in this ring, right? I mean, if you get pummeled just from like left to right, right to left to right, you get too close. Not even that strong of an attack. It doesn't have to be a super kind of thing. It doesn't have to be charged up. You don't have to do it. It could just be a normal kind of like 4-hit combo. You get ring out, you're done. The other person might have no health left, and you could be in green, and they could just knock you out immediately, or they could throw you. I mean, there's just so many ways of you to lose in that, and I did multiple times. I thought, okay, I remember it. I like it. I did just do the story. I tried to play individually as each of the characters. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to win it all. I'm not here for that. So I didn't rage quit, but I did quit out of me not winning. I wouldn't honestly. I wasn't really mad. I was more mad at some of the again like boss fights per se in the main story that I couldn't beat. Definitely more mad there because let me throw that in too. I feel, again, the combat fine, and I kind of embraced it, and I feel like I kind of got okay at it in terms of what there was. But I will say the difficulty kind of scaling, there is none because it's all over the place, I should say. You can have just a string of the easiest fights imaginable, and then you could have the fights I'm talking about where I just lost, 4, 5, 6 times. I think my most was maybe 6 or 7 times in one fight. You could lose that, and then the next fight is like a cakewalk. Like it's not hard at all. It's again no scaling whatsoever. Kind of like rebounds. If it's really hard, the next one's not. But you know what? I feel like I said that in Mortal Kombat as well. I think some Mortal Kombat missions just randomly jump up and drop. But no, overall, an amazing game. Honestly, like it brings me back to my youth. It feels good to play. It doesn't really feel old. Yeah, there's a lack of moves and a lack of just move sets, I guess. But they're really like it feels still somewhat modern, even 22 years old, not exactly modern, but it felt good to do it. And you can do some combos and you can work that in. I thought it felt good. I thought visually, I mean, yeah, you can't convince me it came out now. You can't convince me it even came out in the last 10 years. But the game looks really solid. And I was playing this. I was playing PS2. Now, there was the PS... I don't know if it was on more than PS3, but there was that PS3 collection with Budokai 1 and 3. I don't know the reason why 2 wasn't included. I'll look it up later. But 1 and 3 were part of it. There was trophy support, enhanced visuals. I want to get that, but I don't have that now. I legitimately just play the PS2 version. Looks good. Like, visually looks really good, whether it's cutscenes, whether it's the actual fights themselves, the effects. Yeah, like if there's explosions and stuff, it's not going to look like it does now, but it looks pretty darn good. So I was impressed by it. I was slightly shocked by the low scores that it got, and what a way to start it. So I do want to, like I said, I want to do the rest of them. I have Budokai 2 on hand. It's over there. I don't have 3. I don't have any of the Tenkaichi games. I have some of the more modern ones physically that I've picked up just in the last year or so. I actually just got this within the last maybe 6 months. So I know the Tenkaichi games, some of them, I think 2 and 3. One of them physically is like $200+. That's not happening. So that one I'm gonna have to get creative with. But the ones that are reasonably priced, I will try to get, over the next like year or so. And I'm gonna try to rapid fire through as many of them as I can to get ready for Sparking Zero, because that's one of my most anticipated games. I gotta be real. To go back into this world, modern day, I'm very excited for. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know your memories with this game in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.